Hey everyone, welcome to IDP Plus Bets. Uh, Johnny and I are here to give you our IDP. Well, we will actually be hosting the IDP section of the betting channel where we will be giving you tackle props week in and week out using the brand new tool that we have specifically for betting on the IDPplus.com website. So go ahead and make sure you have an account, you're subscribed, get in there and have some fun with us because we're actually going to be using this tool to place our tackle prop bets for this year. That's basically what Johnny, excuse me, what Johnny and I show is going to be centered around this year is going to be the tackle props. And you might see some pretty important guest features throughout the year. So stick with us and we're going to have a lot of fun this year. But for now, we don't quite have all the information necessary for week one. So we're just going to kind of piggyback off of some earlier work that we did where we were talking about some more future bets. And we're going to kind of update you with some current odds on those bets. And then we're going to maybe, if there's some bets that we really don't like due to some odds changes, we might do some substitutions and just kind of chat about things like that. So we're just going to kind of keep it kosher for week one, and next week and week two, we'll get more into the tackle props, I think. So just kind of stay tuned with us and stick with us, and we're going to have a lot of fun. Hopefully we can make you guys some cash this year. So I am your co-host. I haven't done a great job of introducing us so far, but I'm Axton Harding. You can find me here on YouTube for idpplus.com. Obviously, I've got my awesome co-host in Johnny freaking F1, Johnny Christoffi. He's doing some great stuff on YouTube with IDP Plus as well. So this is where you're going to find us every week, and we hope you like what you see. So we're going to go ahead and kick off the first bet. Where, like I said, we're just rehashing kind of what we put out a few weeks ago, and then we might have a couple extra fun ones for you guys today. So I'll let Johnny start off with his first bet of the night, and we'll just kind of revisit what we were talking about last time.
Yeah, man. Pleasure to be on here. The first bet I'm going to talk about is the Rams making the playoffs. Now, about a month ago when we dropped this first podcast, the odds were plus 100. The odds were in our favor. Now the odds go to minus 110. So actually, I'm not going to sit here and bore you with how great the Rams are. I do think they're a pretty standout team, and I still think they make the playoffs. But at minus 110, I don't know if the juice is obviously not there. The juice got worse. So I'm not going to go out and stick my neck and say this is a slam dunk pick, one you should take. Obviously, if you're a Rams fan, you're probably going to bet this, and there's good reason for that. I think the duo of Puka and Cooper Kupp back healthy, along with some great offseason acquisitions that the Rams have made or have obviously put them in good position. It's still a good bet. Sean McVay is still one of the best coaches in the league. He's still made the playoffs 5 out of the 7 years he's been with the Rams. So I still think this is pretty sure to happen. I think that the Rams go to the playoffs, maybe make some noise. And maybe if this is Stafford's last year, there's a lot of juice in a lot of odds in his favor to do well. I'll talk about another bet I have with Matt Stafford coming down later. It got even better. But yeah, I'm still back in the Rams making the playoffs. But now, because it's minus 110, I wouldn't jump on it. I don't think it needs to be jumped on. I thought maybe it was going to get better odds because they lost Ernest Jones to Tennessee, and I don't think they really got good compensation for that trade, but that's a story for another time. But yeah, that's my first one I talked about in the previous episode. I'm kind of, getting cold feet about this one just because the odds. If you're a Rams fan, take it. But other than that, I think there's better bets we're going to talk about here for your juice money. So, Axton, hopping over to you.
Yeah, I'm honestly not too completely out on that. If you're just looking for something quick and easy that might make you your money back, double your money real quick. I don't really mind those odds at all, especially if you kind of want to in a parlay to kind of act as an anchor, because the Rams, if you look back for the last several years, they're a team that always kind of squeaks in the playoffs one way or another. And that's really all you need. You don't need an outstanding record. You just need them to barely make the playoffs. And they do just enough to kind of make it every year, it seems like. So with a healthy Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua both teaming up, I don't see why this team couldn't at least make the playoffs this year. So at minus 110, I don't think you're really hurting much. So My first pick tonight is going to be Najee Harris over 6.5 touchdowns for the year. I couldn't really find this anymore. I think we got it right around plus money, maybe like plus 105, plus 110 for this a month ago or so. I'm not really too all that invested in it, kind of like Johnny was with his first one. But I do think that Najee Harris is going to still beat that 7.5 touchdowns this year. So if you can find that bet out there and it's for anything around minus 110 or better, I still like those odds for this bet. So again, I'm just going to kind of reiterate, Najee Harris is in the best offense that he's kind of been in since Big Ben, and Big Ben he caught at the end of his career. So I think he's definitely behind the best offensive line, the most competent quarterback that he's had in the last few years. So I think this offense is going to be sustaining a lot more longer drives, and you're going to see more opportunity for Najee Harris coming this season. So 6.5 touchdowns seems like cake, considering that he has yet to find the end zone less than 7 times in any season. He's crushed this every year. So I think that it'll still be a smash play at whatever the odds may be. But again, I wouldn't advise putting much money on it if it's much lower than like minus 110 or something like that. I'd probably refer you to some other touchdown props or tackle props that maybe we'll talk about later.
And speaking of that, I got one coming up for you right now, Axton. Yeah, I'm with you on Najee Harris. I mean, he's in a contract year. He's hungry. He ended the year really strong last year. And I think the Steelers maybe got a little bit better. They're still not out of the woods in that tough division. But, 6.5 rushing touchdowns is not, something too heavy to get. Actually, one of the guys I'll be talking about next for this bet is in contrast to McCaffrey, but it was Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, he had 12 rushing touchdowns last year. And that's a great for an NFL running back, but not really great by his, exact standards. He's had better years, but I think you can go 2 ways, 3 ways with this one. But I'm so happy that the odds stuck at plus 275, and I'm still backing this one to the moon and back. I am astronomically surprised that this is not the odds have not gotten worse. With time past, but a month ago you can get Christian McCaffrey combined rushing touchdowns and receiving touchdowns for 275 plus 275, and you can still get it today. And if it's me, I've obviously made bets on this, future bets. That's why I'm talking about it here. But if I haven't yet, I'm jumping on this opportunity, man. I just don't think in a world where Christian McCaffrey stays healthy, if that's what it's going to be, and I'm not one to advise betting on injury or wondering about it. I mean, Christian McCaffrey, they're going to take a little load management off him. He doesn't need 350, 400 touches perhaps per se, but I do think he's going to get his. And when they get to the goal line, I mean, there was a point in time last year, if, 10, 11 games, McCaffrey had a touchdown. I mean, we look at in his 91 games playing in the NFL, Christian McCaffrey, it's still only 28 years old. Derrick Henry's 30. I referenced Derrick Henry because I think he's maybe the only one that I think could push him for this unless there's an outlier. But Christian McCaffrey, 28 years old, 28 years old, 91 games played. He has scored 81 touchdowns. That is 89% of the games he has played in, he has scored a touchdown. And I think if he stays healthy, there is no way that there's anybody on the radar that's coming close to him in this realm. So plus 275, not something that I'm putting $300 on and just a solo bet, but like Axton mentioned, a good anchor bet. And Rams are minus 110. They're probably going to make the playoffs. I mean, I think if Christian McCaffrey stays healthy, that's all it takes. I think he's almost guaranteed to, lead the league in combined rushing and receiving. Derrick Henry, one of his main competitors, has not caught a touchdown in the last 2 years. He only has 3 to his entire career to his name. So, I mean, when we look at players, we're not just looking at receiving touchdowns. We're not just looking at rushing. We're looking at them combined. And I know Mostert had a great year last year. I see some regression from him. Maybe someone like Devin A-Chain steps up, and there's somebody coming out of the woodworks here. But, I mean, just looking at the teams right now and looking at the strength of offense and strength of the running back position, Christian McCaffrey at 275 plus 275 to lead the league in rushing and receiving touchdowns to me is a no-brainer. And I mean, like I said, unless injury or someone comes out of the wickets, I think this is a pretty safe bet, a good anchor for a parlay. And man, if you can parlay that up with some other bankable bets, you're going to have a nice payoff when this hits.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Just it's nuts. If you would have put the same amount of money on Christian McCaffrey to get 2 touchdowns every game or every week last year, you would have probably made more money than if you would have just bet on a single touch. Like, it was, even though he didn't have 2 touchdowns in every game, he did it often enough that you were still going to be profitable. So I really like this bet for him to lead the league in combined touchdowns. He's really the only guy that's going to get quite the amount of volume in this. Probably one of the most safest offenses in the league, behind one of the best offensive lines and one of the greatest schemes for running backs. I mean, you really couldn't ask for a player to be in a better scheme, or a better player to be in this scheme. It's perfect. So, barring injury, which I really don't anticipate, as I mentioned before, he's well protected. So, that's a great play at plus 275. You're almost tripling your money with this bet. So throwing some money on this with a couple of other futures would be a really fun bet to kind of watch throughout the year. So I like that.
That's right.
For my second pick, I mentioned a month ago, I like Travis Kelce over 900.5 receiving yards at currently that's sitting at plus 140. I actually think that jumped up probably about 20 or 30 points or so. I think he was sitting at plus 110 or 115 whenever I first brought it out. So I'm just going to kind of reiterate the same as I did last time, that Travis Kelce may have had a down year last year, but he still saw nearly 1,000 yards. I think the Chiefs have come out and confirmed that they're going to keep scaling back his workload, not as in scaling it back even more, but he's still going to have – they're more trying to preserve him for the playoff run that they anticipate. So even still with a little bit of play regression, and you're not going to see quite as many snaps as you did in your first 8 or 10 years, he still smashed 900 yards last year. So I think at plus 140, you're getting a little extra juice, more than more than your money back. So I really still like Travis Kelce to get over 900 receiving yards. He's still going to be an important part of this offense. He by far has the most chemistry with Patrick Mahomes, who's arguably one of the best, if not the best quarterback in the league, and quite on track to be one of the best of all time. So you definitely want a piece of what he's throwing to and a piece of this offense, especially considering the kind of weapons they have now. So being the guy that's got the most chemistry with this quarterback, I really like Travis Kelce to get all of the valuable targets in the middle of the field. And I think he crushes this 900.5 receiving yards. So let's try to get some plus money on this. Plus 140. I love it.
Hey, I'm with you, Axton. It's not just because he's wearing a Chiefs hat why he threw this bet out here. The man has good logic. And I'll tell you what, you made a good point, Axton, about just having that chemistry. You know, I hear a lot about he's not going to get his because they have Xavier Worthy, they have Hollywood Brown. These guys are here. And yeah, I do think targets go down. But you look at, maybe there's more attention on those guys now than there ever was, right? They had Kadarius Toney and MVS. Like, those guys don't scare you as a defense. You're still going to go and protect. You're going to make sure that Travis Kelce doesn't beat you. Now you got to talk about this Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy. So maybe that, as much as it's taking targets away, it's opening the field, opening looks for Travis Kelce. And like you said, man, just that rapport with Patrick Mahomes. I think this is a really great bet. He only has to get a little bit. I think it's 53.5 yards on 17 game pace to make this happen. And I do think there's going to be some big spike games for him. Maybe it starts off tomorrow versus the Ravens, and I do think he hits the ground running. So I think they go for this three-peat aggressively, and I think that Patrick Mahomes is going to have one hell of a year, which means Travis Kelce, if he can stay healthy, he's going to do big things. And I think 900 yards is a cakewalk for him. So I'm with you on that, Axton. Before we flip it over to my next pick, I just wanted to mention, if you haven't checked out the website Trophy Smack, go ahead and do that. Now, I get it. It's past draft season, so you're probably not looking at draft boards. But in case you're looking for one for next year, or you're looking for a nice trophy, if you want to get a trophy like the one I have behind me, go to Trophy Smack. They have a wide selection of trophies, of draft kits, of fantasy football accessories that you can purchase from their website. They do great work. So If you haven't heard of Trophy Smack already, go to trophysmack.com and get your trophy or any other fantasy accessory today. So moving into my next pick, I still like this one, man. I still like this one a lot. There's good logic for it, and that is it's the IDP prop. So we're I'm licking my chops over here. Alex Singleton to lead the entire league in combined tackles for plus 900 odds. I still love this man. I'll say the same rant that I had last time, and nothing's changed. So that's great because I loved Alex Singleton to make good on this prop before. 2022, he was 5th overall in combined tackles. 2023, he was 3rd overall in combined tackles, which means 2024, if we're skipping by 2s, he's going to be number 1, baby. So I think Alex Singleton just being on a bad Denver team. They got Cody Barton. To me, it's not like a huge hurt. It's not like they bring in Patrick Queen. And, hey, Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith did their damn thing. So, I mean, you could have a good linebacker there, but they bring in Cody Barton, and maybe he gets picked on a little bit. Neither of these guys are going to set the world on fire in pass coverage. That's okay. To me, what I see the Denver Broncos, unfortunately, being down in games. And when you're down in games, you get the ball run down your throat. And when you have a guy like Alex Singleton, whether it's pass coverage, he might get picked on and just sack up the tackles, or they're just up against the Broncos and they just run it down their throat. Alex Singleton is going to clean up those tackles. He's done it for years now. Every opportunity he's had, he's made good on. And I know we talk about like Roquan Smith. He's a good bet to get this. Yeah, he is. But maybe losing Patrick Queen, maybe when you have such a strong player like Patrick Queen, you can focus on your game. Maybe now they bring in Trenton Simpson. Maybe he has to help him out. For some reason, things don't always add up with when teams switch players. So I still think Roquan Smith's a good bet. I believe he's a little bit easier odds, maybe plus 600 or 650, and that's a fine bet too. But I just see this team being so bad that they're just going to have ample opportunities for Alex Singleton to make tackles. He's had no trouble staying on the field. Listen, we're not talking about sacks. We're not talking about interceptions. We're just talking about tackles. And I think Alex Singleton is definitely one of the top 3 to 5 at worst players in the league to get you tackles. So plus 900 odds. I still think this is going to be the guy who maybe isn't the first pick in your fantasy drafts IDP, but when we look at just tackles, I think he's going to lead the league in tackles. So combined and assisted, combined tackles, solos and assisted, that is plus 900. It was then, it is now. I'm still betting it.
That's a solid ticket. And honestly, it's one that I would have definitely taken myself, and I still might take before we get to week 1 in terms of just putting cash on something. But for this show, I really wanted that one. Saw you already put it in there, so I had to choose something. I had to choose someone else. You kind of alluded to them, so we'll get to him later on. But I really love Alex Singleton to lead the league. I think the only people maybe that passed him last year were Foye and Bobby Wagner. Which Wagner is, he's on the last couple of years of his career. He's in a new scheme. I mean, there's a lot of factors that play into that. And Foye has been up there in the last 3 or 4 years. You're bound to fall at some point. So I think if anybody's going to dethrone the king, I think it's Alex Singleton himself. So that's exactly what they got this guy for, was to just soak up tackles in the middle of the field. You might often hear that he's not a great real life football player, but if you really think about his purpose on this team, he is an outstanding football player, and he does exactly what he needs to do, and that's just rake up tackles and stop the run in the middle of the field. And for fantasy, that just so happens to be very lucrative. So also in the betting world, he's a great bet because now Josie Jewell's out of town. They've got a Cody Barton who has been serviceable. I mean, for all the flack that he gets, honestly, the guy had 130 tackles last year. I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at. So, he's going to come in, but I don't think he's going to command quite the amount of volume. I don't think he's going to be hurting Alex Singleton's volume by any stretch of the imagination. He's in a new scheme and everything too. So I really like that Alex Singleton at plus 900. My next pick is going to be the Raiders to get over 8.5 wins. I noticed now they actually moved the line down to 6.5 wins. So Vegas doesn't have any confidence. I actually had to get these odds. I would give give you guys an alternate line to up this to 8.5 to get some extra juice on this. At 8.5, they had it at plus 245 right now. I'm not really going to back off that. I wouldn't say that I would put a ton of money on this, but for plus 245, where you're almost winning 3 times your cash in profit, I really don't mind this at all, because considering their schedule, they play a lot of iffy teams twice. I'm pretty sure they play the Chargers twice. They play Denver twice. Denver with a rookie quarterback and a lot of unknowns. The Chargers have who leading their wide receiving core. Nobody really knows at this point. We kind of assume Josh Palmer and Ladd McConkey are going to see a bulk of the targets, but to what extent? I mean, you play those two teams twice, and the Raiders, if anybody hasn't been keeping up, actually have a fire lit under their rears now. You can really tell in just the way, the difference in play overall that this team had after Antonio Pierce took over at head coach last season. Everybody was just boosting up. There was just more motivation all over this field. Everybody had a reason to play, or felt like they had something to play for, and were more willing to work with each other and work out any kinks that they might have had. So I think that coming into this next season, they think that they're really going to have something to prove, because if you hear anything about talk around the league, it's that the Raiders probably are a little overhyped. And I've heard so often now that neither one of their quarterbacks, Minshew or Aiden O'Connell, are going to get the job done. And I don't anticipate this to be a high-scoring team. I am not going to lie. But I think that this team overall is going to have enough will to play. The defense is going to be stout enough that they're going to keep teams in check, and games aren't going to get out of hand. And the offense is going to be competitive enough to stay in those games. It's just a matter of finishing. But I think they have enough veterans on this team to actually finish some games. Gardner Minshew may not be the sexiest quarterback, but he is a guy who's been around, and he's played in some important games in his career, and he knows how to handle adversity. So I think he's somebody that could absolutely achieve this over 8.5 wins for the Raiders this year. I think that just in the 4 games that I mentioned earlier is almost half of this. And I know that if you go back to our video about a month ago, I definitely rattled off about 8 or 10 teams that were absolutely winnable teams for this, that were on schedule for the Raiders. So I'm still on board with this at plus what did I say? Plus 245. Yeah, absolutely still on board. If you want to up it to 845, I think it was more closer to just plus maybe 150 or something for 7.5 wins. I'm okay with that if you want to bump it down, but I'm still on board with this Raiders getting over 8.5.
I'm with it too, man. I'll tell you what, add another win to the list when they play my Steelers. They always play Steelers hard. I think that's another win. So I like the Raiders. A lot of people thought Aiden O'Connell was going to be the quarterback. To toot my own horn, I thought it was going to be Gardner Minshew. Here we are. And I think Gardner Minshew is going to do well. I think he did well for Jacksonville. He did well for Indianapolis. And one thing I like about Gardner Minshew is he makes mistakes, but it doesn't rattle him. He'll go throw a pick. Doesn't matter. Hey, I'm going to go out and just ball, do my best. And if I throw another pick, so be it. But I'm looking to score some touchdowns. So I like Gardner Minshew. I think he's a great fit. Like you said, they have a fire lit under them. I think Gardner Minshew is the perfect quarterback for that team. Hopefully he can have that rapport, that chemistry with Devontae, Jacoby Myers, and a great set of tight ends, good running back, and Zamir White. So I like that bet, Axe. And I think 6.5, I don't know why they moved that down. Maybe a lot of people weren't betting it, but I might be one of them now who does. So, really like that bet. I think they're an underrated team. Here's an underrated bet I'm about to let you with, and we're going to aim for the stars with this one. This is my highest odds. It actually even went up. This guy's like fine wine. He only gets better with age, and that's Matt Stafford. It was a month ago plus 1,200 to lead the league in throwing yards and passing yards, and that's a tough feat. Now it's at plus 1,400, even better. So if you're aiming for those stars and you believe in Matt Stafford, you're a Rams fan, this bet's right up your alley. And I don't think he's too far actually off reality from reaching this milestone. Last year, Matt Stafford missed 2 games. Even though he missed 2 games, you might damper your taste buds here. He only had 3,900 yards passing, 3,965. but that was missing 2 games. If we take his average, we add that to his cumulative passing yards, we get just shy under 5,000 yards, which actually, I'm sorry, just shy under 4,500 yards, which means he would have been, if he played those 2 games on the same pace that he was going for, he would have been 4th in passing yards behind Tua, behind Jared Goff, and behind Dak Prescott. Now, Tua, I know he has some great wide receivers, and you could say there's a good chance that Tua repeats. But as an NFL fan, it's tough to repeat in any category. Of course, I said McCaffrey's going to repeat, and I think he does. But, I mean, Tua, I don't know. I just think that there's room for him to regress a little bit. I definitely think Jared Goff, as far as passing yards, is going to regress. He had 4,575. I think that comes down a little bit. Then the only player that would have been ahead of Matt Stafford is Dak Prescott. And I think Dak Prescott, all 3 of these quarterbacks listed above have a good shot to be the guy, but they're not giving you plus 1,400 odds for them. Matt Stafford when we go back in the annals of history, we look at early 2010s. I think it was 2011. In 2012, I believe he was 3rd and 4th, respectively, in passing yards. So he's been up here before. Now we look at probably the best wide receiver core, finally healthy, that he's ever had. So, I don't hope this is Stafford's last year, but I kind of do, because I think it even makes this a better, a more likely bet of him getting this. I just want to root for him and watch him play this whole year, and hopefully it's not his last, but if it is, I think he'll go out guns a-blazing. And I think just the makeup of this team, they have a great defense. They're going to be in some shootouts. Now, I don't know how Kyron Williams is going to be, whether he's going to stay healthy. I mean, he catches some balls back there too. I mean, you got, 2 great receivers. Colby Parkinson's what we consider an upgrade at tight end. We'll see how that goes. Then they got Blake Corum. I know Kyron can catch the ball a little bit too. So, I mean, I think for the Rams to be good, which I do think they will be, I think they're going to need to throw the ball, because that's what their bread and butter is. And I mean, I just think that if Matt Stafford can stay healthy, play like we think he's going to with Puka and Cooper Kupp, I think there's no reason why he shouldn't be at least top 5 in passing yards. And to me, I'm almost guaranteeing him being inside that 5 to 8 range. So why not? Again, look at Alex Singleton. Alex Singleton was 5th 2 years ago, 3rd. Why not him to be 1st? So this is great odds at plus 1,400. Vegas doesn't think it's going to happen. Granted, the odds aren't on it happening, but I think if you're looking to shoot for the stars, how I said earlier, I think Matt Stafford to lead the league in passing yards is something that we all want to see, and something that is a real possibility and we can make some money on. So that was my shooting for the stars, my biggest odds. I know you have big shoes to fill, Axton, now, so I'm going to pass it back to you, see what you got.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to follow up the odds on that one. I actually really like Matt Stafford in this category to lead the league in passing yards. He's really always up there in top 5 or 10. We just kind of hope that maybe he's got his arm issues worked out, because that seems to always be a thing with him, his elbow or shoulder things that kind of keep him out of a game or two. But for the full season, I don't see why he couldn't be among the top with a healthy Puka and a healthy Cooper Kupp. Crossing fingers that all of that stays the same. But I'm on board with that. That's definitely one to put you can kind of lower the amount you put on that, because you're going to get a little bit bigger payout. So that's something I wouldn't mind putting a few bucks on, to know that I'm going to get 14 times my cash if that wins. And if it's just a few bucks or something like that, then I'm not missing out on a whole lot. So I really like that one for kind of a shooting for the stars one. Let's see. My next one here, we kind of alluded to it earlier. Another good candidate to lead the league in combined tackles would be Roquan Smith. Johnny alluded to him earlier. I just have to kind of agree that if there's anybody that's going to compete with him, it would be Roquan, especially now considering, like Johnny mentioned earlier, there's kind of a void for that LB2, and now they have a second-year Trenton Simpson filling in, which I think he's an outstanding talent. I just think that, with a young player comes some adjustments, and you may not necessarily see those adjustments play out in fantasy, and you might with the statistics. But I think on the field, he's still going to require a little bit more help from Roquan Smith as the general of this defense to kind of just help him fit in more and get the feel of the speed of the game with the scheme of the defense and everything like that. And playing at this kind of pace, I think there's still going to be a little bit of a hole that Roquan Smith's going to kind of have to fill more in the middle of the field and just kind of soak up a few extra tackles. Last year, I think he had quite a bit more assisted tackles than he usually does. I think this year, with Patrick Queen out the door and a more inexperienced player at LB2, I think we can kind of expect maybe those numbers to transition more to solo and maybe even bump up in totality. So I think Roquan Smith still at plus 900 along with Alex Singleton. I like those odds if you want to throw a few bucks down on something like that. I think Roquan Smith is definitely one of those guys you're going to see in the top 5 at the very least, or top 10 in total tackles overall. So he's definitely a good candidate, and the talent's there, no doubt. So arguably, I'd say talent-wise, he's probably a top 2 linebacker in the entire league. So we just kind of hope that the tackles follow that up this year, and maybe we can cash in on some plus 900 odds.
Yeah, man. I thought he was less. I thought it was more shoe-in than that. So plus 900. He's the same as Singleton. You might as well bet them both. Put both your hands in the pot, and I think it's one of them is likely to lead the league in tackles. So I didn't realize that he was plus 900. That's a great bet too. Why not? I mean, there's a void to fill, and he almost amassed it last year with Patrick Queen there. So should be more more for him to put on his plate this year in Baltimore. So love that bet, Axton. We'll see how that plays out. Hopefully it's one of those two and not somebody else. But I have one that I kind of fell off a little bit on. So I had talked about a month ago, and it's not because I don't believe in it. I had talked about Malik Neighbors being the leader in rookies when it comes to receiving yards. And I still think he's a good bet, if not the number one, maybe Marvin Harrison, maybe someone comes out of left field. But he was sitting at plus 600, which was really juicy. He's going to get force-fed the ball with Daniel Jones in New York. So I still like it, but the only problem I'm hesitant now is because you lost your opportunity. The window's kind of closing. People are getting on board with this too. So now it moves down to plus 330. Again, if you're still a Giants fan or a Malik Neighbors enthusiast, this is still a good, juicy bet at plus 330, just not the crazy odds it was given before. I mean, there's some other guys that could possibly do this. I know, Worthy looks really good. I don't know that he's going to have the volume. Probably what it's going to come down to is volume. And, I mean, I still think that Malik Neighbors, I'd say it's like a 60% chance Marvin Harrison gets this and a 40% chance it's Neighbors. So that's pretty good odds for a plus 330 bet. So I do think Neighbors is probably the guy who's going to get it. I think he probably will be. But again, you have some stiff competition there with Harrison Jr. He's probably going to get a lot of volume too. So just because the odds went down, again, if you like the bet, still bet it. I'm still repping it at plus 330. I still threw a bet on it already. I got in at plus 600, so it makes it a little bit different. But I still think that Malik Neighbors is going to have a terrific year. I don't know if it's going to be the full Odell Beckham effect, but I think it's going to be something pretty close to. They're going to have to force feed him. They're going to be, again, down in games. And when you're down in games, you can't afford to run the ball. You got to throw it. So I think this is still a good bet, and it's still out there. And probably the window only gets smaller. So you might as well jump in at plus 330. But instead of kind of, really endorsing that one, or I should say in addition to, because I still did endorse it, I just want to spark it up with what Axton and I are going to be doing this year. So this is like right up our alley. I literally talked to Axton. I'm looking at live week 1 prop bets for tackles, and I see this one and it lights up at me. It just glows at me, and that is EJ Speed. EJ Speed is a guy that Axton and I have talked about many times, a guy that we roster in many leagues, best ball leagues drafts we've done together. Here it is, our boy EJ Speed versus the Houston Texans week 1. His over is 7.5 combined tackles. All right. I'll get back to that in a minute. So the odds are minus 145. I get it. He's a up and coming player. 7.5 is kind of steep. Well, I'll tell you what, last year in 2023, in week 11, he kind of seized that starting role next to Zaire Franklin. Zaire Franklin, the stalwart that we knew, he was going from 11.5 tackles a game down to 7.5, right? And that's still serviceable. But, you're wondering, like, why did that happen? Maybe you bet Zaire Franklin, you got a little bit upset last year. Well, EJ Speed kind of came in there like a wrecking ball. Of those last 7 games, from week 11 on, EJ Speed ended up missing 1 game. He was hurt. But of those last 7 games, he hit over 7.5 tackles, 6 out of 7 of those games. Now, come back to Houston. We needed 7.5 tackles, right? Last year, week 17, so it was one of those last games where EJ Speed was starting. Week 17 specifically, the Indianapolis Colts played Houston. In that game, EJ Speed had 13 combined tackles. He had 10 solos and 3 assists. When I look at it at the solo tackles, he needs too much. I think it's 5.5. When I look at the assists, he needs 2.5, to get over 2.5 to hit that, obviously 3 to hit that over. I don't really like either of those, but when we look at it, combined tackles, over 7.5 tackles for EJ Speed, due to the way he ended last year when he got that starting role. We know he's going to have that starting role. And look at the game script, who they played, their opponent. Now it was Houston then. He had 13. Now Houston over the offseason. They get a little bit. That was probably a game where C.J. Stroud was airing it out. Like, that was their element last year. Now, coming into this year, they get Joe Mixon, probably going to run the ball a little bit more. I think this is just a solid money in the bank, over bet for tackles with EJ Speed 7.5 for -145. So this is the kind of bets we're going to be getting into on our show. And EJ Speed, I actually just saw this, so I'm going to get off this podcast and start the bets. And hey, maybe by tomorrow it's going to be plus over 8.5. As you get in, as time goes on further to week 1, you see these over-unders start to get higher. So the earlier you get in is better. Right now, I think EJ Speed, a lot of people aren't betting it, and I think this is a great avenue to make some money. So when we talk about week 1, on our next show when we're doing these tackle props, this is the kind of bets you're going to get, and I think this is the kind of bet that even though it's not plus odds, you parlay this with a couple other shoe-ins that you think, you're going to end up having a nice little, return on investment by the time your bet hits. So EJ Speed over 7.5 combined tackles, -145 versus Houston.
I love that. Yeah, I'm big on EJ Speed. Been picking him up absolutely everywhere I can. And you're right, playing against a Houston offense who is, as we were kind of talking about before the show, an offense that's going to sustain drives, that's going to be marching down the field. And in order to do that, you have to run the ball. You have to run the ball effectively like they did last year. And now they have an upgrade at running back. They had Devin Singletary last year. Joe Mixon comes in this year, a perennial top 5 running back in terms of fantasy. In terms of production, he's up there among the top as well. I mean, a guy who's going to be catching passes out of the backfield, rushing a ton. They're going to be on the ground a lot. EJ Speed getting 13 tackles last season, and with the nothing really changing in terms of personnel when it comes to Indianapolis defense coaching or even offense on the Houston side of the ball. The only thing that changes is that Houston gets a better running back, so that actually provides more opportunity or better opportunities for our linebackers. So I really love that as kind of something we were talking about earlier, where you, like, if you want a parlay, especially, this is a great anchor play, something you almost like one of your more confident plays of your parlay, something you know is going to happen, and you can just kind of look to kind of build on your odds from here. You know what I mean? And try to dip into those plus money odds and extend your payout. So I really like this one at -140 for week 1. My last bet for what we were kind of going back and doing and reviewing kind of what we were talked about last time was for Max Crosby to get defensive player of the year this year. And the odds currently are plus 700. I believe they're around the same about a month ago. I still really like this. Nothing's changed on my stance. You guys heard what I said about the Raiders earlier. I still feel really great about this defense. It's improved even upon last year, and Max Crosby was probably, I believe he was top 3 in voting. A guy who's seeing 200 more snaps than the next guy in line at the position, who's going to get more run. who's got a motor that's unmatched by nearly anybody in the NFL, on an up and coming defense, playing for a new coach where they have more to fight for and things to prove this season. I think Max Crosby, having the help that he does now on the defensive line in Las Vegas, is a shoe-in to finally achieve that Defensive Player of the Year tag that we've kind of been waiting for the last few years. So at plus 700, throw a little bit of money on it, win 7 times your cash at the end of the year. Thank me later. I like this one for Max Crosby. But I know that Johnny threw one in with EJ Speed. I had to go ahead and add an extra one here because we wanted to have a little fun with this at the end of the show. So for my extra one, I liked I'm going to kind of target the Thursday night game. This is going to come out Thursday. I want everybody to be looking at, everybody's going to want to get into that first NFL game. So with the Chiefs and the Ravens matchup, I really like George Karlaftis to get over a quarter of a sack. On DraftKings, this was minus 125. And when you pair that up with an EJ Speed tackle prop, you're getting around plus 205 odds. You're looking to profit twice your cash. I like Karlaftis in this one against a Russian quarterback. I believe last year he caught Lamar Jackson off the edge in the playoffs. I imagine that the Ravens would be running a lot more. Lamar probably won't be passing quite as much, but Lamar nonetheless was, I believe, 8th or 9th most sacked quarterback last year. That just kind of happens with rushing quarterbacks. The guys that use their legs, they tend to want to leak out off the edge and they escape the pocket, and that's where those edge rushers can come in and snatch them up. And Karlaftis is outstanding at doing that. He's a great chase down artist, and he's again one of those high motor guys who is just going to make you work each and every play. And if you slip up, and he's going to make you pay. So I really like this. All we have to do is get over a quarter of a sack. So if he and Chris Jones collapse the pocket and catch Lamar Jackson slipping and taking too much time, I don't see that's an easy cash. All he has to do is just get half a sack to cash this at minus 125, and you pair that up with the solid anchor and EJ Speed. You know, the books, when they put something at minus money, you know that they feel like this is something that could happen. So we've got two props, a tackle prop and a sack prop here for you guys, that when you combine that, you're getting twice your cash for profit. So I think this is a fun little play for us to kind of round up the show with. And you know, we always want to reiterate to everybody that we're not ever encouraging everybody to spend more than what they can. You know, we encourage everyone to bet responsibly. This is all in good fun, of course, but we do our research and we want to try to bring you guys smart plays. And we're always going to try to be upfront with you and be honest with kind of how we feel about a certain play. So again, good luck going into this season. Week 1, we're so excited to get underway. So, you know, follow us on Twitter. I am at Axeman IDP on Twitter. Johnny is at Johnny freaking F1. Follow us, DM us, let us know if you're tailing. You know, if you cash one, you know, let's celebrate together. This is going to be a great season. We're excited to get it underway. So thank you guys for watching this week, and we'll see you here next week on Saturday or so, I think, is when this show's going to start coming out. So, you know, keep your eyes out and keep your eyes open for all the other shows we got going on and the content we got going at idpplus.com. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.